Fewer than 10 years, that's all the UN has given us to close down our mining industries here in Australia. Assistant Secretary General Selwyn Hart released the UN roadmap at ANU's 2021 Crawford Leadership Forum today. Hart warned OECD countries have until 2030 to close their coal mining industries, commit to a net zero target by 2050 and lift their ambitions to cut greenhouse gas emissions more swiftly. This pressure comes as China, one of the world's biggest emitters of carbon dioxide, rejected attempts by the US to accelerate its own climate efforts. For more on this, I'm joined now by the Australian's environmental editor, Graham Lloyd. Graham, thank you for your company. A 10-year deadline to shut down Australia's coal mining. That's not far away.
No, I think it's news that would have come as a bit of a shock to a lot of people. But what it shows is we're really reaching the pointy end of the countdown to the climate conference in Glasgow, which is scheduled for November. Boris Johnson has made ending coal one of the deliverables from the conference, and I think we're seeing a lot more attention being paid to that as the other ambitions, setting a 1.5 degree maximum, etc., fall away. So the issue was brought home very sharply to Australia by Selwyn Hart in a speech today. And he said this is a UN ambition for the world, and developed countries have until the end of this decade basically to close down coal completely.
The point I made there at the introduction to you in relation to China and the US negotiations breaking down, I mean, this full court press on us here in Australia, this diplomatic pressure on coal, it seems redundant when we know China and the US, two of the world's biggest emitters, have failed to reach an agreement. China even saying that it'll create its own climate roadmap. Why are we shutting down coal when the biggest emitters are going nowhere near targets that are meaningful?
Well, I think financial markets are going to ultimately decide what happens to coal, and companies will make their own decisions. But Australia certainly finds itself in an invidious position where really we're a carbon-intensive economy. The coal sector is a large part of our export industry. And it's a situation that most of European countries that are pushing hardest for an end to coal don't find themselves in. So we will be making a big sacrifice on that front. When it comes to China, there's got a 10-year longer time horizon to deal with coal if they have to, in fact. And the coal growth is overwhelmingly happening in China, Indonesia, Vietnam, South Africa, Russia, all countries that can continue to produce much longer than Australia will be supposedly allowed to. And we'll probably see Australian production simply taken up in these other places for no net benefit for the environment.
Well, so you nail the madness of it all. So we could shut down all our coal tomorrow, and the growth in China's coal emissions, correct me if I'm wrong, in 1 year would dwarf the gain that you get out of Australia. So why push Australia? Are we sort of a sacrificial lamb? Are we an example to the rest of the world? Why push Australia when our overall emissions are so small on a global scale when China is doing whatever it likes?
Well, I think from the perspective of the UN, Australia is a wealthy country. Australia can afford to make these sacrifices. The rest of the world needs to be given time to catch up. Australia's had plenty of time to think about it, and it's just bad luck. Yeah,
but what about nuclear? I mean, fine to say get rid of coal. Where is the debate in this country about replacing baseload? I mean, I am all for a debate about net zero emissions. I want to know how much it's going to cost, both in terms of the fiscal load and also jobs. But I also want to know what comes next then in terms of baseload. Don't come at me with solar panels and wind farms. How do we run a manufacturing country? How do we have a national security output to stand up to China in the years that come if we're energy poor?
Yeah, I think that this is the big debate. What do you replace your traditional power sources with? And there's been an enormous growth in solar and batteries and all these other things, but there's a lot of scepticism about whether this is genuinely going to do the heavy lifting that will be required. And global surveys all show that the replacement of energy by renewables is a very, very tiny fraction. So we need something else. There's a lot of talk about nuclear. I've been following the nuclear issue for a long, long time. I think it has a lot of potential with the small nuclear reactors that are being developed in other places. But we also have to recognise that they are still in the development phase. And really, like coal stations and other things, they have to run all the time to get their capital cost back. So we've distorted the energy market in such a way that it's very difficult to see what the logical answer is to really firm it up.
Look, I take your point about nuclear, those new reactor types being partially in development, but so are batteries, so is everything in this space. And I don't think you discount one for the other, but I know that's not what you're doing. I was just thinking, listening to you about Boris Johnson's real push for a coal outcome come the summit at the end of the year. I tell you, I hope we haven't traded those Pfizer doses that we got on Sunday for rolling over on coal come the end of the year.
Well, I think it'd be a pretty poor transaction if that's what we'd done. But Boris Johnson, I think, is almost desperate to see a result out of the Glasgow meeting. Russia isn't really wanting to play. China's told America to get lost. They'll do their own thing. There isn't going to be the big headline. The world now agrees to the 1.5C target. So I think the Johnson government is really looking for what it can get right now. And at the moment, it looks like coal.
Well, I don't know how government and leader-to-leader talks go. I hope someone pursues that with the Prime Minister. I don't know. The timing of it is a bit peculiar to me. Graham, Lloyd, thank you for your time.
Thank you.